Recently, you've probably heard more about cryptocurrency as we see Bitcoin hitting an all-time high of 61,000. However, what's gaining more popularity is something called an NFT, which stands for non-fungible token. Now, NFTs are digital assets that are unique and create digital scarcity. So they can't be duplicated or divided. Now, they have many use cases like digital collectibles, music, artwork, game tokens. You've probably heard of NBA Top Shots, where they're creating an NFT of video moments from basketball. And recently, people, an artist who did a piece of art every single day for 5,000 days, which is over 10 years, he just sold a JPEG of these 5,000 pieces at Christie's for 68 million. And by JPEG, that was the piece. They bought it for 68 million. And other notable sales of digital art were 590K for an animation of a cat shooting a rainbow out of its ass, or 7.58 million for this pixelated thing called a CryptoPunk. And a lot of these punks are getting a lot of money. Now, recently I got on a call with a good friend of mine who was going all in on NFT. He is deep in it and is building a personal portfolio, or museum as he calls it, of his NFTs. He has a whole strategy into how he's understanding the market, seeing the signals for value through all of the noise, because there's a lot of stuff being created. And he's so deep into it that he has turned 50K into 150K in the last 3 weeks. And it's not just art, but it's also real estate and gaming. So let's jump into our call with him. Nick is the founder of eComly. So he daylights as e-commerce ads, and then he moonlights as an NFT art speculator. Nick, so good to have you here.
Great to be here.
Sweet. So tell me, what is an NFT?
Yeah, so in the basic sense, like NFT is a very big ecosystem. What it essentially means is it's a piece of art or music or something that is attached to a token on the blockchain and moves on the blockchain. So there's complete transparency of how many are out there, who owns it, and you can seamlessly like buy, sell, and trade them. So there's the art space, and like the premier place for that is Nifty Gateway. That's where I spend a lot of my time on the art space. But there's games coming out with NFTs in them. You can buy an NFT of music. It's a massive booming ecosystem, so it's really exciting.
People keep comparing it to the art world, as in like, oh, why is it worth anything? But in the art world, there's forgeries and all these issues with that. The great thing that I've liked about NFTs is that you can see all the information about them. You can see like when they were first sold, who bought them, for how much. And it's so interesting because I was going on your museum the other day and I was like, okay, let me track back. And oftentimes in the real art world, like art will get stolen from a museum and it's like, where did it go? Whereas on the blockchain, it really can't disappear.
Very much so. And today's been a wild day on Nifty Gateway, so it's an awesome time to like come on and talk a little bit more about like the art, because when I first joined back in February, it was just taking off, and then it really took off in the last 2 weeks. It's been a choppy market, but now it's taking off like a rocket again. Of course, a lot of people heard about the Beeple auction for $69 million. That was a huge catalyst. But I mean, like the amount of money that I see coming into this space, like it still feels like really young.
Yeah. So if you haven't heard, there's a pixelated drawing of these people called CryptoPunks. And I saw the highest selling one sold for 7.58 million for this one image. And some of our friends have these and they're like not selling them. I'm just like, what is going on? Tell me a bit about your experience with crypto and how you got into this.
Yeah, so I was fascinated with crypto. It's funny, like when I first heard about crypto, I actually heard about it in 2010. I thought it was the stupidest idea ever. There was people talking about this on a forum. It was like 20 bucks, but whatever. And then I watched the whole 2017 boom. I wanted to get in at 5K and missed, and watched it go all the way up to 20K. I was like sick to my stomach. Then watched it like collapse, all the way back down. And then in 2019, I started getting really interested in it again and started buying it. And then after the coronavirus, where everything crashed in like March and April of 2020, I started to accumulate more Bitcoin. And I was really spending a lot of time on the stock market, and I just had Bitcoin. And then I started talking more with you and some other people in our group. And like started to get my feet wet in some other stuff. So I bought Ethereum, and then I did some farming, and then got
So
into
Nick,
Frax Finance and Uniswap. Yeah.
So Nick in our group for the longest time. So it's this crypto group that I kind of stumbled in. I wasn't super into crypto. It was more just a friends group. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then I added Nick and he was super engaged in it right away, but he was not a crypto person. He had Bitcoin and we were all laughing at him because you're like, you need to get into the DeFi world and like, what are you doing? And all he ever talked about was stocks and Bitcoin, like nothing else.
Hence my nickname.
Yeah, his nickname's Boomer. And so what was hilarious was I'm seeing him like talking about stocks and Bitcoin, and we were all like super into farming and all this stuff. And then suddenly I turn around and he's super into NFT. He went from literally like polar opposite one thing to the other. And tell us a little bit about your portfolio. Like, what was the first thing that you bought and how much was it? Why did you buy it? Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So first of all, shout out to Mike, because Mike like was talking in our group all about NFTs, and I started to get my toes wet on Nifty Gateway. And what's really cool about Nifty Gateway is they have like drawings that you can get into, and if you win one of these drawings, since the item is usually pretty rare, it can make you a lot of money. So actually, the funny thing is that when I first got a Nifty Gateway, it was like early February. I bought like 2 pieces of art that, let's say they're around $700, and I sold them at like $1,000. I made a little bit of money. If you look up those pieces now, they're worth 8 to 10 grand. When I was in the beginning, I didn't get it, and I was just like buying and selling, just like a tiny flip. And then I got into a drawing and I got like the super rare edition of the drawing and flipped it for like 6K. And then I was like, holy crap, okay, there's something here. And I was lucky in early February that pretty much everything on the market went up by 2 or 3x. You could have bought the worst piece of art on the market, it went up by 2 or 3x. And so that time was wild, and it was less like sophisticated because you could just pretty much buy and sell anything. But I mean, at that time when I got in, you could have bought a Beeple for 8K. I mean, those go for $140,000 right now. But I was stupid. I didn't understand the space. Like, what are the great artists? What are the not so great artists? But I love stocks, and there's a lot of like market theory and kind of math to this stuff. But the things that I learned is that you basically have to have a stomach of steel, because there's not a lot of liquidity, so things can move up quick, but they also can go down quick, and you need to be able to like hold on a multi-week horizon. But how I've shifted my portfolio, I sold like a lot of the stuff that I had 2 or 3x that were just kind of mediocre artists, and I've really started to focus on top artists that are producing great art, that their value is going to go over time. Because what's really happening is we have a tsunami of NFTs coming into this space. And what that does is new artists and new art will dilute old artists in old art. So there's art that I had 2 or 3 weeks ago that used to be top sellers on Nifty Gateway, and they don't sell at all anymore, just because there's so much new art coming on that it becomes like a thing. Like, why would I spend $800 for this piece of art if I could spend $800 for this new piece of art and it looks cooler and it's from an exciting new artist? So my theory is that we're basically an ocean and we're funneling into a river, and you have to find the water that's going into the river. So you want to own the top artists. You want to own not even the top artists, but like the trending artists. So today, this artist called Dot Pigeon, I'm not even kidding, his work tripled today. Just a momentum took off like a rocket. People started buying, and buying gets more people buying because they're like, they see the momentum. So I bought 4 Dot Pigeons for $900 today. I flipped one for $1,800 2 hours later, and I'm holding the other 3. Pack came out today. Pack is getting in Sotheby's, which is insane.
Can you share your screen and show us some of these things you're talking about? Because I know you're all into maddogjones. I'm just watching. I have a couple of NFTs that I've bought, but you made
a nice flip on Bitcoin Angel, right?
I haven't flipped it yet. So
okay,
actually,
well, still a
Nick,
great piece.
talk a little bit about Bitcoin Angel, and I'll share in the video people like the art that I bought for $777. And I bought this on a drop. And actually, I was talking to you about it. I'm like, should I buy this? And you're like, I don't know, like it's a high mint. And I'm like, I already bought it. So hopefully, because it's Bitcoin, something will happen.
and that's what's so exciting is that this space, it's really evolving in terms of what artists are doing and how it's changing. So like if you think that there's 4,500 editions out there of Bitcoin Angel. So one thing that I noticed was like the less editions there were, the more rare it is, the price is going to go up. So I saw Bitcoin Angel, I bought it at 800 and sold it at 1,500. Terrible mistake. They went up to like 5K. But my miscalculation was that I thought that it was just going to be art, and like how could it get up to 5K, because so many people, if there's 4.5K editions out there, so many people are going to want to take profit. But what Trevor Jones innovated, which is mind-blowing, is he actually turned his art almost into a platform. So now if you're a holder of the art, you're getting into these future drawings. So the current one he's running right now is when Bitcoin hits 77K, one person that owns a Bitcoin Angel is going to get flown to his house for a self-portrait. Now, if you're a whale out there, you would value that from Trevor Jones at $1 million, $500,000, $1 million to get Trevor Jones, a top-tier artist, to draw a self-portrait of you. If you're super rich, and that is a huge value proposition. And so he's platformized his open edition, and owners know that they're going to get a chance to enter these exclusives down the road. And so it completely changed the value mechanism, because now it's not just people buying and selling for the art. It's almost like owning a stock and like receiving a dividend in a sense, because you know that he's going to continue to monetize that list. And so now there's a lot of artists that are following that as well. Another
And
artist
actually,
that I really love,
keeping on Bitcoin Angel for 1 second, is this idea of because everything's on the blockchain, the original artist, when you resell, gets a piece of the resale price. So in traditional art, usually it's, the artist will sell and then to the first buyer, and then the first buyer can keep reselling, and the original artist, even if they get really big, will never see a piece of that sale. But in the NFT space, the original artist always gets a royalty. So if you're thinking this idea of like the starving artist, is this artist who made this piece will always profit from it after, if it sells for 20 million, they'll get a small piece of that. So it both helps the artist and the market.
And that's like such a good call out, because that is completely different. Like, if you made the Mona Lisa and then you sold it as an artist, you don't get any of the upside. The only upside is that maybe your future work that you'll make will go up in value. But with this, literally, as you said, they're getting a percentage of every single sale. So it's creating such fascinating like market mechanisms and economics. So one guy that I'm super bullish on, I actually just bought this piece today for 25 grand, this Lotus train.
So guys, he just spent 25 grand on this. Tell me more about, okay, you started with what, a portfolio, you put like 50K in it, and what's it at right now?
After today's boom, it's probably worth about 150 grand.
Okay.
In a month.
And that's, in less than a month. It's like 3 weeks.
Yeah. It's insane. Yeah. It's been like a hell of a run. Like I've been glued to this. Like I used to play video games. I don't play video games anymore. This is better than any video game that's ever existed in the history of mankind. Like it combines like that with like the stock market and like all sorts of things. So this is the original Lotus train that I bought. I actually got it at 12.5K. So it's appreciated. This piece is now worth at least 28K, if not 30. So I've already made like 18 grand of profit baked into there. But I also was able to buy because I took profits today. So this artist named Pack, he released, it just came out today that he's getting in Sotheby's. So he's like now the next Beeple in
Sotheby's?
terms of, Sotheby's. Yeah, I'm terrible with pronouncing things. So yeah, so this piece took off like an absolute rocket. So I owned one of these for 5.5K, and you can see I sold it right there for 16 grand. And this was 5K this morning, and it skyrocketed to 16K. So then I took that and I was able to funnel that into buying this next piece. And so like that's part of the game, is like, you want to get in early and then buy at the top. So I mean, this guy right here, Animal Scraps, I actually wanted to delist this because I like sold some other pieces to be able to get the Lotus train. Like this guy's insane. So this guy came in this morning, right? And he bought these 5 pieces, thought as a system, each of them 100K. And then ideas are the currency. These two were like 140K. So he just comes in this morning, like nothing, drops $500,000 on these 5 Mad Dog Jones pieces. Then he buys these cats at 6K each. So that's about 36 grand. And then he buys these 4 pack pieces. That's about 90 grand. So this guy came in and just dumped about $700,000 in a span of 15 minutes and then pieced out. And
wow. So
yeah.
one question is, I'm sure people will watch this and they're like, why are you having 5 cat pictures? Is that to resell it, or what's the point of that?
So the point of that is that Mad Dog Jones did an innovative thing where the reason why these thought as a system and ideas of the currency are so valuable is that he actually he released 9 1-out-of-1 editions. So 1-out-of-1 editions mean there's only one out there that exists. So it's super rare. Collectors love it. Very high value. He created a mechanism. He didn't even charge for money. If you wanted a 1-out-of-1, you had to trade him 5 of these ideas are a currency or thoughts as a system to his wallet, and in 2 weeks he's going to burn them. So he literally took them out of the supply and gave you a 1-out-of-1 limited edition. And by doing that, he created scarcity on these old pieces. They were like 40, 50 grand, or like 70, maybe 70, 80 grand when he did this. And they went up to being like 150 after he did this. And why people are so bullish on the cats is, let me tell you something that's it's called the 9 cat thesis. I was hammered drunk with my buddy on Discord, and we turned almost a joke into something that now we don't think it's a joke and it's actually real. So there was actually only 886 cats minted, but they changed it. You can see on my screen to 909. You notice the 9s, right? How many lives do cats have?
9.
They have 9 lives. Exactly. And so there's a working theory that Mad Dog Jones is going to make you burn 9 cats for a future piece that he's going to drop. And so whales are accumulating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you scroll down, 7. So he's almost up at 9 pieces. He's probably on that thing too. This guy, Animal Scraps, he bought some of these and got a 1-out-of-1. He spent about $500,000 to get a 1-out-of-1 Mad Dog Jones. And if you listen to the audio, I don't know if you can hear the audio. So up here in the top right hand corner, you can see it's like we're in like a dry cleaner place, and there's like a breaking news up in the top right hand corner. The audio is like, breaking news, Mad Dog Jones stock is dropping. The CEO comes out and says, don't worry, we're going to take care of our shareholders, but investors are still feeling skittish. So like literally he's dropping like Easter eggs in there saying like, I'm going to take care of you, like buy my stuff, hold my stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and if you count the amount of tiles that go left to right between the dryers, there's 9 of them. And if you count the amount of dryers that you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can see 9
that's some
washers.
tinfoil hat shit. Oh,
that's some tinfoil hat shit.
Oh, maybe is there 9 lights also?
Could very well be. Yeah, like he dropped some like crazy layers of Easter eggs, and like we were literally joking, like Mad Dog Jones is in the Nifty Gateway Discord, and people have asked him multiple times, and every time he quote replies, no comment. If you know what I mean? Like he's like kind of saying, and he made millions. He hasn't bought a new house. He still drives his dusty Toyota Corolla. And one day he went out to his car and he hand drew into the dirt "hodl cats" and then posted it to Discord. So like and this is why it's so addicting. There's just like these artists are like learning how to like turn this into like a platform more than just like a piece of art. And that's why things that don't make sense, like why would you own 9 cats, or why would you want an art piece if there's 900 of them out there? How is that any valuable? And you start to see these mechanics make things valuable. And also, I don't think that the art could be treated like this if Bitcoin didn't exist, because if you can think about Bitcoin and understand like Bitcoin is just a piece of code, but it's worth $60,000, then it's not that crazy of a logical conclusion to be like a scarce piece of art from a famous artist where there's only 900 of them. Why can't that also be a store of value?
So I was listening to the great thing about, blockchain and cryptocurrencies that there's a log of everything that goes on. So what I think is
Yep.
super cool is like click on one of your pieces and show people the history of like each one. So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
this one was bought originally on a drop for this much, and then this is how much it's gone up in value. Because you don't really have that in the real world. And actually, I was listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast recently about he had someone from like the FBI or CIA or a prosecutor or someone who was involved with the Silk Road, except not
Yep.
trying to actually get the Silk Road guy. Instead, there were two FBI agents that were essentially like double agents.
They're
And
like dirty.
yeah, they were dirty and they were basically blackmailing why am I forgetting Silk Road guy's name?
Ross
Uh
Albright.
yeah. So they were blackmailing Ross Albright for Bitcoin, which they got. And so in real life they're
If that
writing
was cash dollar bills, it would have gone away. You never would have been able to find it.
yeah, because they were forging court orders and signatures and like literally going all over
Yep.
the world to delete that this ever happened, except the one place that they couldn't was the blockchain, and there was history of everything. And so that was the reason that they were
Exactly.
caught, is because everything is public. And what I love
And
about
this is the same way.
yeah. And so NFTs, if you have an NFT in your your crypto wallet, does it also work like they can airdrop you things that you otherwise wouldn't get?
That's a great question. Yeah, technically, yes, they could. And that's a great idea. And honestly, I could see artists probably doing that in the future. Right now, it's manual. You know what I mean? Like maddogjones,
Yeah.
you literally like sent the pieces to his wallet, and like he sent you back like the 1 out of 1. But that would be super easy to do. Like, okay, any wallet that owns this piece, you could airdrop them like another piece down in the future. One artist on here recently had a thing where if you own 2 of his pieces, then you would get a third piece unlocked. So that
Mhm.
was a pretty cool mechanic. But like, yeah, you can see on this Lotus, the edition history on this Lotus train. This guy Charlie Sample came in at January 14th and bought it for $700, and I just took it off his hands for $24,000. And so, I mean, that guy's having a great day. And
Yeah.
like, I think that's one thing that kind of holds people up, is that they're like, why would I, like, this person only paid $700? Like, how on earth could I pay like $20,000, $24,000 for this? And the reason is that that's like saying like, hey, this guy bought a stock for $10. Why would I buy it for $100? Well, you're buying it for $100 because it's called Amazon, and then one day that stock is worth like $1,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but for some reason, people with art, I think, because they can see, like, when you buy a stock, you don't get to see what that person that you bought
Yeah.
the stock from, like the history of it. But this is transparent. You see the history. So a lot of people get tripped up and they're like, why the hell would I buy something that was worth $700? Well, it's worth $700 because the only people on Nifty Gateway back in January, there was like
Mhm.
300 people. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like now there's a massive market.
Whenever you can see what someone previously paid for it, that is the anchor in your mind, and paying anything more. So if you bought Bitcoin for like $400 years ago, paying $60,000 now seems like a stretch. And it's
Yes,
like, it's just really hard to get to that, even though, it might have been years and it's worth more. You still don't get to it, which can actually hold you back. So I've bought and sold stock and then rebought much higher. And at the start, I'm like, oh, I used to have this like Shopify I bought for like 25 bucks. And then I
exactly.
sold it 125, 150. And then I rebought it back at like 250 or something. So it's hard to like get over that hump of like, oh, I just made a mistake and it's worth more.
And that's the thing, you just got to look at like the future value. So like it came out that there's a Chinese digital art show at the end of March, and Fewocious is going to be on there, very big artist. Beeple, of course, $69 million Beeple is going to be headlining that as well. And the third person, Mad Dog Jones. And my
Wow.
theory is that, yeah, this guy's going to take care of his shareholders, as he said. And then also I think that the art is going to resonate very well with like the Chinese community. It just has that like kind of
Yeah.
Tokyo city vibe, and so I could see his art doing very well there. So like for me, I'm very bullish on Mad Dog Jones, and that's why he like represents like a huge percentage, close to like 50% of my overall assets.
Portfolio.
In
If someone was to get started with NFTs, like
yeah,
you went from 0 to 100, like I got whiplash just watching. I didn't even know what was going on. So like what would you suggest that they do? Just start looking at what's selling, or or just understanding the technology behind it? Like, how do you know all of these artists suddenly? Is it just because you're, watching Nifty all the time?
Yeah, and like what I would say is that like a week in the NFT is like a year in real life. Like so I've been in it for like 4 weeks. Like I have like 4 years of knowledge. Like you're gonna learn like super quick. But like look at this, like Mad Dog Jones piece right here. Why would I care? I'm just a cat. Sold for close to $8,000. You could have bought that on at open for $2,500. And I actually tweeted out about it like 3 months ago. It was or 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago. It was only like 3,000. I was like, buy these, buy these, buy these, and they're taking off. So I mean, basically, if someone was new and they were entering it, like what I would say is that if you have the budget for it, like you should buy um like really good pieces. Like there's so much art on Nifty Gateway that you can buy and just get hosed on. That like focus on like the really good artists and like people in chat, or like you can reach out to me, like I'll point you to like where like the really good artists like are. But like just like scrolling through, like, and there's some like like you got to be very careful about the opens. Like there's a ton of like just art that is not that good out there. Like this Meat Canyon guy, his stuff like really stunk. It didn't do well at all, so you have to be a little selective with like with your picks. But like for example, Dot Pigeon, so this guy's stuff is what I told you, like just took off like a rocket today.
Mhm.
And so we can look at um, like, hey Alexa, go tell everyone to like F themselves. So like the number one thing is when you're buying something, like, is this actually good art? Does it like
Yeah.
when you look at it, do you think like, hey, this is like cool? And like this art's like kind of badass. So like what he did is he put real NFTs like into his art. He got permission from the
Oh, that's
artist, but these are
awesome.
all like, yeah, yeah. And so he did a whole series about this. And so out of all of his pieces, the Envy one started taking off first. You can see right now the floor is 3,300.
Mhm.
These were 1,400 this morning, and like 2 days ago, you could have bought them for like 1,200 or 1,000. But what you can see is you can do like some math. So there's 353 editions. It was released 2 weeks ago, and like already 135 have sold through. So it's like, wow, okay,
Mhm.
like a third of the primary editions have flipped and sold to other people. So like there's good volume. Like you want to see great art that has like good volume. So you can see
Mhm.
this is 10. 10 got bought in the past 2 hours. Another 10 got bought in an hour span. Like this is sold probably like 50 today.
So which one did
But
you buy that you flipped for 16? You bought this morning, then you flipped for 16K.
so I bought that a little while back, and then I flipped it for 16K this morning.
Okay.
So that was Pack. And he's the one that got into Sotheby's, or so,
Okay, got
yeah,
it.
whatever you call it. So is this it? Yeah. So you can
Oh,
see,
got it. Yeah.
yeah. So we can go to the sales. You can see I sold at 16K, and if we go back, we can see that actually we can just click on the edition. Um, so 377 was the edition number. Um, and I think I bought it 10 days ago, and it
Mhm.
sold for, yeah, I bought it for 5.4. And it's funny because I bought it at 5.4 and it dipped down to like 3.5K, and like I almost paper handed it. I almost
Yeah.
was like, oh no, like what's happening? Like, is he like no longer popular? So like I'd be killing myself right now if I like sold it at a loss, but it
Yeah.
looked like a not a great play for like
One thing I want to talk about, so the Beeple piece, he had tokenized that into a coin. Do you know much about that?
the guy, like the people behind it, their name is like Coven.
Mhm.
Um, and like all I know is that they basically what they did is like a month ago or so they went around and they bought 20 of Beeple's like one out of ones, like real premium pieces. They spent like a couple hundred K on them each, and then they bought some rare land in Decentraland and bought some other like rare NFTs. They packaged it all together and tokenized it, and then basically allowed people to like fractionally get a piece um of Beeple by like owning that token. And I'm sure that you'll see like more of that, because for a lot of people it's just like an ETF. They don't want to have to go
Yeah.
through the trouble and buying like 100 individual NFTs. They'd rather buy, have someone get some really good stuff and like package it up and roll it out. I think you'll see a lot of that with like virtual real estate ETFs. So like
Yeah.
right now I've just gotten into the virtual like digital land kind of stuff.
Okay. You talked about real estate, digital real estate. Tell me more about like what that's like.
Yeah, so there's two really big digital like ecosystems coming out right now. Both one is Decentraland, and they actually like ICO'd back in like 2018 before like the big crash. They timed it really well and like got some money out. But Decentraland, I don't know if you remember hearing about like Second Life back in the day,
Oh
but
yeah.
it's sort of like a Second Life. Um, where it's basically like you can like walk around and people can build buildings and you can like own or like trade things in it. So like a lot of people buy land in Decentraland and they create a museum and they put their NFTs in there. And like you can go
Mm,
show up and like look at people's NFTs in a digital world. Some companies throw like conferences in there and like have meet and greets and stuff like
yeah.
that. But you're basically like speculating on like the land, and that's kind of like a Second Life thing.
Hmm.
And then there's this other one that I'm really bullish on called Sandbox. And
Hmm.
Sandbox is like these genius guys out of San Francisco. It's like a startup, and they're pretty much creating like a decentralized Roblox or a decentralized Minecraft, is the way that
Okay.
I would explain it. And so there's a limited amount of land in the world. And if you buy and own land, they have a no code, you don't have to code, a no code gaming engine where you can build games with NFTs on top of your land. So you can create like an adventure fighting role playing game
Yeah.
on this land that you own. And then when people come in and they play the game on your land, you earn money. So
Oh
it's
wow.
this insane ecosystem where they have artists creating NFTs that you can put on your land and use in your games. And then um, and then there's people like buying the land and owning the land, and then there's people that are like building games, and then there's going to
Hmm.
be players that come in and play. And I mean, this all sounds crazy until you hear that Roblox IPO'd for $70 billion, which is, insane. And like my younger sister plays, and like she spends money Robux in the
Yeah.
game. So like this whole ecosystem, it's not like theoretical, it already exists in Roblox. This is like the decentralized play at it. So like if you're bullish on Roblox, like this could be like a speculative play. So yeah,
So
so
I
I
bought I
bought some
bought
last night.
Roblox whenever it IPO'd because I was like, I don't
Yeah, me
know
too.
really anything about it, but I know a lot of people talk about it and they just basically are printing money. And
Yeah,
so okay, so how much did you just bought land here?
yeah.
How much was it?
$10,000. 10,000.
10,000. How much do you
So I
get?
went to I
How
spent
many
ten thousand
pixels?
dollars last night. I fell asleep. I was like, woke up. I'm like, man, did I really buy $10,000 of virtual land last night? And then the pack piece made 10K, and I'm like, okay, like that's how like the universe works. So what I got is I got a 3x3 grid. So I own 9 pieces of connecting land. And the reason why I did that, like you can go in and you can buy a like one piece of land right now for like 800 to $1,000. But
Hmm.
my thought process is that as more people buy individual pieces, it's going to be harder and harder to own a not like a 3x3 grid,
Yeah.
and those are going to shoot up in value more than the individual pieces. The reason because is that a one by
There's less of
one
them.
game, yeah, and also there's less space. So if you're going to develop a game on a 1x1 space, that's a lot smaller than a 3x3 grid. A 3x3 grid could be like a whole level in a game.
Yeah.
So like I think there's a benefit to that.
Wow. All right. So how much
Crazy.
time are you spending on this stuff?
Every second that I have that I'm not working agency life, I'm doing this stuff.
Yeah.
As I said, it's like replaced like all other hobbies, like, and there's just like so many layers to this space, and I really believe that like this is like the equivalent of like the tech boom. So like,
Hmm.
Bitcoin and crypto in 2017, that was like the dot-com bubble. It was like if you look at all the great companies from the dot-com bubble, they all exist today. They were just too early. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then like 2012, like Facebook takes off, Amazon takes off, all of these different things like really start to take off. And I think we're seeing the same thing where like all of like Decentraland existed in 2017. You could have bought land.
Yeah.
Um, it was just a little too early, but like now they have like a lot of funding, a lot of people buying land, and like, this transition to digital because of coronavirus like accelerated everything. And we still may be early, and you have to have like that stomach. Like you can't come in here and like rack up a 30K credit card bill and expect that like you're going to flip it for
Yeah.
90K, especially with the lands. Like a nifty gateway, maybe you could pull that off, but like as I said, a lot of this stuff is like super swingy, so it's like
Hmm.
you have to have that like gut, like, okay, like I bought this thing for like 4K, it's like, I bought that pack piece. I didn't particularly love it. But
Yeah.
one of our buddies, Mike, he was like, dude, Pack is like the man. He's like one of the top dogs. He's like, you should buy this. And I bought it. And it's so funny. 2 days ago, I was going to message him like a joke message, like, hey, dude, like it's going for 4K now. Like I have kids to feed. What's going
Yeah.
on? And then today it takes off to 16K. And like,
That's
that's
so
the
funny.
universe being like, don't send that to Mike.
Yeah. You should be like, Mike, refund, please.
Yeah, refund, please.
He
But
like,
I actually got him to burn coupons. So it would have been square.
oh, so what's really interesting to me is how NFTs have become so like more popular than like DeFi is, which DeFi
Yeah.
is like decentralized finance on Ethereum, which is basically you kind of can hold crypto as collateral and borrow against it and everything.
Yep.
It's just amazing. I think it's awesome. And so what's
Yeah.
harder to grasp is the idea of an NFT. It's like a authentic token, but it's a JPEG. So it's very
Yep.
difficult for people to get onto it, but it's hit mainstream much quicker than the decentralized finance stuff. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's the 69
I
million, or
think it's
like
just because like,
are people are like, oh, people are
yeah, I
spending
mean,
this much money on pictures.
yeah, I think it's because like decentralized finance is like it's like super interesting tech, but it's almost like B2B, business to business, in a sense of like, like how many people like didn't buy Salesforce because they didn't understand like what Salesforce actually did and how it powers like most business out there. Like
Yeah.
decentralized like finance is going to be massive. Like in terms of like market cap, it'll probably be bigger than NFTs. Although if you look at the video game industry, it's massive, and like NFTs are sort of like a futuristic
Yeah.
play on that. I think why NFTs took off is because it's just like so easy to digest and like understand. Um, like if you try to explain someone like what compound finance is, it's like, okay, you can supply Bitcoin and then loan it back and take that cash and do other things with that cash. Like people are going to be like, oh, that's cool, but it's like taking out a loan. I could just go to the bank. In reality, it's way more powerful than a bank.
Yeah.
But for someone to be like, oh, I can like buy a sword that I'm going to be able to use in a video game, a rare
Yeah.
sword. If that person has played Fortnite and bought a skin in a game, or if that person has
Hmm.
played a video game and bought something in game, it's just a lot easier of an on ramp for
Yeah.
the average Joe.
Any last words before we finish up? I feel like
No, what I would say is like, if you're going to put money into this, put money in it that you wouldn't be mad if you lost. Like,
yeah.
because it is like possible that this thing is a massive bubble and that it could explode one day. And like, once again, you have to, if you put in money that you're not worried about losing, you're not going to panic sell in 30
Yeah.
minutes if you see the price dropping on an item. But like, treat it like you're investing in stocks. Like, treat it like an investment. Like, are and this is kind of ironic because like, look, people are like throwing money at crappy meme stocks and they're taking off, or same with like crypto. But like in the
Yeah.
NFT space, you can do that and that could work. But like, you want to own the Facebook of NFTs, you want to own the Apple, but also it's like really early on. So if you have money to risk and you do your research and you find like good opportunities, you can make a lot of money. If this is the start of something really big, if this goes for the rest of the year like a rocket ship, like
Yeah.
getting in now could be like, getting in Bitcoin at the beginning of 2017 and selling at the end.
Awesome. All right. So I think you just need to teach NFTs and I'll teach DeFi.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do like a course. You know what I mean? Like a 2-part course.
Yeah. Here you go. Here you go.
Yep.
Okay.
Back over to you, Catherine.
Awesome. Well, Nick, thanks so much for being here. I think you probably just blew a lot of people's minds. And I'll share like links where you can chat with Nick, where you can see his art museum and other things like that, where you can see what I've bought.
Great talking to you, Kat. Had a blast.